Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. So today I'm going to briefly run through what I love about Techno, the baby audio drum synth, and what, from my perspective, could be improved. So this massive 1.1 update just came out, adding this really nice sequencer and a lot of other features as well, and this is now on iPad and iPhone too. There's going to be a general review of the app which will cover, the earlier features as well as some of the new features. Also, one thing quickly first, everybody, if you're a fan of my work and you'd like to support me at no extra cost to you, and if you're buying desktop plugins, including this, that are available on Plugin Boutique, I've got a link for Plugin Boutique affiliate link in the pinned comment and the video description of this video. Thank you to guys using those links. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's just jump through. I've got a few presets here that I just did using the randomizer. So these were all just done, with the randomizer and no other tweaking. And I found it is a really nice little sequence randomizer, and it is designed to be intelligent, and it creates nice sounding sequences for sure. So that's great. We'll come back to the sequencer later. So first thing I just want to say, overall, I absolutely love the design of the app. So from a looks perspective and a sound perspective, it's beautiful. In terms of sound, Jatin Chowdhury from Chow DSP was the main developer behind this. So it doesn't surprise me that, all the circuit modeling and everything has been done very well, because that is his specialty. He's a big brain guy when it comes to that sort of stuff. And although this is based on classic drum machines, by the way, it's not a slavish emulation or anything, and it probably allows you to push things very far if you go deep into the synthesis settings and stuff. Now, one thing worth mentioning, although the UI looks very simple, there are a lot of controls hidden away. Anywhere you've got a little cog, that'll bring up other controls. So, these are the main... what are we on here? The hat. Let's just press on kick, for example. So here, these are the main synthesis controls for the kick. If I press this, then we toggle on these deeper controls. Tap down here to scroll down further there. Same with the effects, right? So these are the main effects for kick A. These effects and these sliders here, everything will change depending on what engine you're on. Right, like now, that's the hat, ring, exciter, tilt, saturation, reverb, and so on. Snare has different stuff, disperser, exciter, etc. Right? So although it looks very simple, there's a lot of stuff hidden away behind the icons. So you can, go very deep with this, or you can keep things simple. So it's good for beginners, it's good for experts. One thing, though, by the way, it's a pity that, the architecture here is fixed. You've got these 16 different voices, but, you've got one kick A, you've got one kick B. You can't have, for example, 5 different kick A's, which, you might want, but maybe there's a reason why that's been limited. Also, of course, you could... that's the point of plugins. You could work with a few different instances of this, right? If we go down here, this is where we toggle on the sequencer, and we'll come back to it later. Here is the mixer with mutant solo and stuff for each one. Here's some reverb settings, some humanization settings. Inside the calibration controls for each synth, you'll also be able to dial in whether and how much it will respond to the global humanization. Okay. So back to the sequencer. So the sequencer is really a pleasure to use and look at, I would say. And theoretically, you can enlarge it on iOS, but I just had several crashes when I pressed this. I think it's something to do with having a USB mic attached because before I was trying to make this walkthrough, I didn't have any crashes with that. But there's definitely a bug. So I'm not going to press this now in case it crashes this session again. And I have to start everything from scratch, like I had to already several times. But there is a bug there. But yeah, normally you should be able to tap this and the sequence view will open bigger. When you've got it loaded on a big iPad, like here I've got 13-inch, and with this at full size, you probably wouldn't really need to zoom in on that, but it would definitely be handy on a phone or on a smaller device, or if you've got, you know, the window sized smaller, right? Okay, so one thing that's easy to miss, by the way, about the sequencer, again, you know, make sure you tap here, and this, you can't drag this, which is the normal way these things work, so it can be confusing, but basically just tap in the space down here to toggle between the lanes 1 to 8 and 9 to 16. Okay, so there are a few cool things here. Oh, let's just leave that in. That sounds good, even though it was a mistake. So, you know, if I press this, I can suddenly tap here, and now I've just changed the length of this lane. And that's nice. That's a nice little performance control. And just tap it again to get rid of it. So, you know, you could get polyrhythms and stuff going. Tap this little thing. And I don't know why I'm having to tap 2 times every time I try and use my trackpad here. Bluetooth attached to the iPad. Don't think I need to double tap when I'm directly on the screen. Yeah, I don't. But with the Bluetooth keyboard, I'm having to double tap that. That's strange. So yeah, this is just adding in a little ratchet, right? Now here I can randomize the entire sequence. Here I can just trash the entire sequence. Here I can double the speed of the entire sequence or halve the speed of the entire sequence. Some settings here, you know, do you want it to follow your DAWs transport or be free, or you can just turn that off altogether. And then, you know, here we have, like, we've got a global randomizer, but I can also randomize for a given lane. Now, one criticism I would have on iOS, when you're using touch, sometimes these randomizers are a little bit fiddly. Like sometimes when I tap them with my finger, they respond very well, and other times I have to tap a few times. That is a bit annoying, and that's a common theme with Baby Audio. I do hope they sort that out. It's not a huge, big thing. I've mostly found it, you know, operating pretty well, but it's still definitely not perfect. And so here, look, we can, you know, have or double the timing for individual lanes. So that's really nice. Another thing, you know, here you can just quickly dial in the chance for each lane. And also on individual steps, if you drag vertically, you can adjust the velocity, which is really nice. And you can see that getting darker as I bring the velocity down. There's a little shortcut, by the way, as well. If you press Option on your keyboard and you tap a step on the sequencer, let me just try that. Oh, great. Okay, now that's not working. Huh. That's strange. That worked for me earlier. Weird. Maybe it only works in standalone. Ah, there we go. Okay, strange. Let me try that again. Option. Okay, it's working now. Option and tap, and it's filled all those steps. Problem is, though, if you don't have a keyboard attached, you can't do that, you know? And it is a pity because really, there should be gestures that can do anything that can be done with a keyboard shortcut, you know? Now, just closing the sequencer for a minute. Another thing worth mentioning. If if I tap on this, I can see what MIDI note will trigger each of the drums, right? And you can tap this and you can use MIDI learn to just, attach a keyboard, make sure you're sending it into this, and then play a note. So I pressed D here and it's put in D there. Now, this says D2, that says D1. That's just because, there are differences between how different instruments approach that. So be aware of that also. If you're trying to trigger something with a keyboard and it's not working, try an octave up or down. This is just a weird quirk of MIDI. It's not a problem with Techno or anything. And look, you can also save, if you set up a certain configuration here, you can save that and give it a name and stuff, so that's great. Now, another thing, let me just close this. So it also has multi-out. So if I load something, I've got a little one that I made here, send to 3 multi-out instances. Okay, so this is a very, very, very basic example of multi-out. So if I go in here, how your host deals with this will be different in different hosts. This is how it's done in AUM. So I tap here in another instrument slot, go to multi-bus audio unit instances and choose Techno A2. And then the easiest way to proceed from here is just to duplicate this. Or I can just repeat, the steps that I did before. But this way is easier. And so now, if you see this instance, this is sending the kick, or this is getting the kick. Okay, and here, this is getting the snare, Very, very, very simple example. And here, this one's getting a hi-hat, right? And then the reverb is coming out on this main instance. That's why you're seeing that light up. So it has multi-out. That's great. It's super useful. Every drum machine should have multi-out. So I'm really glad that it has that, right? Yeah. Now, let me just open it up again. Okay. So tons of randomization options, right? We can randomize, all the patches. We can randomize individual sounds. If I press this, then I get a little dice here, and I can use that just to randomize the kick, right? And you also have a lock here, so that you can lock things that you don't want to be randomized by the global randomizer. Great. I think the original release version, the 1.1 version didn't have that. And it's got undo and redo, which is great. And I think it didn't have that maybe before. So everything with a randomizer should have undo and redo, so that's fabulous. So let me see, one important thing to mention, very important. The iOS version does not allow for drag and drop of audio or MIDI. If you're looking at the desktop version, it has more options here in settings, including the ability to drag and drop audio and MIDI. That is a real pity for some people, I think, because, for that audio feature, that's what you use to export samples of each of these drums, each of the drum engines. And you can export samples either with or without effects. But it seems like on iOS, because they weren't able to implement drag and drop, they've just, dropped that feature entirely, which is crazy because there should be a way to just, even if you can't drag and drop, and I know that's difficult. If this is a Juice port, it's difficult to implement that, although it is possible. But what Baby Audio should do is set up a way that you can just export the samples to the Files app, you know? So that is a pity. So that's missing. That's the only really important thing that's missing. There are a few keyboard shorts, as I mentioned, for the desktop version that will work on iOS if you have a keyboard attached. But, you know, really there should be gesture-based alternatives. Also in settings here, just to mention quickly, you know, you can set whether it will be velocity sensitive or not. You know, you might want that, you might not when you're sending in external MIDI from an external keyboard, say, or another app or a touchscreen keyboard or whatever. There are also some swing controls, 16th or 8th note choice here, and dial in the amount. You can also set up choke groups. So let's say, for example, if I put hat A and hat B, if I put them both in group 1, then when hat B plays, if hat A is already playing, then it will choke it. That's super useful for emulating the way that real drums work and just for doing creative effects as well. So overall, I think it's a pretty great drum synth. I just hope that Baby Audio start making their iOS versions identical to the desktop versions. And for the hit and miss response to touches that plagues their iOS offerings, like Transit 2, also pretty hit and miss on the tapping of some little UI elements. So I really hope that gets sorted, but apart from that, it's great, beautiful sounds. So in this video, I mean, I'm not diving into the different synth engines. There's a hell of a lot going on there. I don't know, maybe something for another video, but I'm not sure. There's probably already videos on that anyway elsewhere. So thanks everyone. I hope this was useful for you, and see you in the next video. Take it easy.